Welcome back. It's been a little more than a week since Americans cast their ballots for candidates and issues in this year's election. And CBS Exit Polling shows the state of the economy is a big concern for Americans. Things like inflation, affordability, and healthcare costs are among the biggest concerns. So joining me here on the set to talk about the state of Washington's economy is State Treasurer Mike Pellicciotti. Mike, thank you for being here.
Mark, it's great to be with you.
Yeah, first off, what brings you to Eastern Washington?
Well, I always like to get out to Spokane and Central and Eastern Washington. I've been in Spokane today, met with some students at Gonzaga, gave a speech there, met with the new university president. I'm on my way to Kettle Falls tonight.
Okay. Let's dive into the Washington economy. Earlier this year, Governor Bob Ferguson announced a projected $12 to $15 billion budget shortfall over the next 4 years, and then some austerity measures to hope get us closer to being back in the black. How are we with those efforts?
Well, look, let's start with the good news. For the second year in a row, U.S. News & World Report has rated Washington State #1 in the nation for long-term fiscal stability, and Moody's has just reaffirmed a AAA credit rating for the state of Washington. The challenge is, the economy has been weakening in a way that is impacting the revenue projections going forward. And it's something the legislature is going to need to grapple with and ultimately balance the budget as they do every year.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, trade is hugely important for the state of Washington. I think it's tied to about 40% of the economy in terms of international commerce. Mm-hmm. How are the president's tariffs impacting things like the ag industry in central and eastern Washington, or even aerospace over on the west side?
Well, look, we have a pretty diversified economy in Washington State. Even when you mention agriculture, which is part of our diversified economy, even within the agricultural sector, it's diversified. But tariffs are having an impact across the board. I mean, you talk about agricultural sector, 90% of our fertilizer comes from Canada. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, farmers are getting squeezed on the import side. On the export side, they're getting squeezed because it's harder to get their products overseas. It's getting harder and harder, but it's most importantly increasing the cost for consumers. And that means cost of living, which is already getting harder and harder for folks to get by, is particularly tight right now.
Yeah. In terms of some of Washington's biggest companies like the Amazons and Starbucks, they've just recently announced some pretty big layoffs on the corporate side. Is that a side of things to come, do you fear? Or kind of, I guess, how do you look at those?
Yeah, look, I mean, I can't sugarcoat it. There are a lot of challenges, especially when it relates to tariffs. I mean, it's why I joined Governor Ferguson and bring forward a legal argument to the U.S. Supreme Court just last week to overturn the unlawfully imposed tariffs. A report just showed that we're facing the potential of losing 33,000 jobs in our state just due to tariffs, just in our state. And that's more people than attended the average game at T-Mobile for the Mariners this past season.
Yeah. One of the things as the state treasurer, one of your jobs is to kind of oversee state-funded projects. Here in Spokane, we have the North Spokane Corridor, North-South Corridor, which has been in the works for a couple of decades now. People here are eager to see that project be completed, and there are concerns with the budget woes in the state that might be an issue. So is it still going to be completed on time?
Well, look, it'll ultimately be a question for the legislature on how they want to prioritize that. But look, I mean, people have been waiting here long enough. My mom lives here in Spokane. I went to school here in Spokane. I feel like people have been talking about this for years. One good thing is I was talking about our credit rating. We need to maintain that in our state because that is the contributing factor as to whether or not we can get more bang for the buck in our transportation projects, and I want to make sure we're maintaining our good financial health to make that a reality.
We are running out of time, but I want to ask you about one more question. One of the things that you're passionate about is financial literacy, especially among our young people in the state. And you're kind of behind a push to introduce financial literacy courses as part of a graduation requirement for high school. Where does that stand, and why do you feel like that's important?
Well, I feel like we ask a lot of 18 or 19-year-olds, but we don't explain the difference between a grant or a loan. We say sign here, but we don't talk about how interest is good when you're saving money and bad when you were borrowing money. And I feel it's a critical tool to economic empowerment, that you shouldn't be relying on how good your parents are with money as to whether or not you're good with money. Mm-hmm. And so I'm calling the legislature to finally require financial education to be taught in all of our schools.
It seems like this issue has bipartisan support. It failed last session, though. Do you feel like it has better chances this session?
Well, I'm not going to quit because, as I go around, I'm talking to the Kettle Falls Rotary tomorrow morning. I'm sure they're going to agree as well. Look, I've spoken to tens of thousands of people in the state. I've yet to meet a single person who says, hey, I understand financial education. Leave me alone. I don't want to know anything more about financial literacy. We all know we need to know more, but at a minimum, we need to have a baseline for those graduating school today. I'm going to do this push to make sure this happens.
All right, Mike Pellicciotti, thank you for your time today.
Thanks so much, Mark.
All right.